Well, welcome to session 5 of our network profile series and the class 301 that this is a part of. We ended up with our last session here determining what your God-given personal style is and what your Myers-Briggs type inventory was as well. And hopefully it was an opportunity for you to get a chance to know yourself better and to begin to get a real good sense of why you do some of the things that you do. And we'll talk a little bit more about what those scores mean here in a little bit. So later on, also in this session, we're going to be exploring the influence of passion. So we'll be doing a couple of other activities here that will give you a chance to find out what your passion is, or in the SHAPE acronym, what H stands for in terms of your heart. So if you turn to page 114 in your book, as we talk about the personal style description, and we'll talk first about the network personal style, and then after we finish this particular section, then we'll go over and review a little bit of the Myers-Briggs inventory that you took as well. Now, personal style indicates the way that you prefer to relate to people and the world around you. Serving in a way that is inconsistent with your personal style over a period of time leads to several things that end up kind of making life frustrating for you, or making that ministry frustrating. One is that you may have inauthentic relationships with people because you're not really who you are at your core self. Another problem is decreased motivation, because if you're doing things that you really have to force yourself to do, it takes a lot of motivation to do that. And if you're doing that consistently, then it gets harder and harder to be motivated about that particular job or ministry that you are a part of. And then ultimately, though, if you keep doing something that you aren't really gifted at, that doesn't reflect your personality, it can lead to burnout. So when we serve, though, in ways that reflect our style, we will feel genuine, energized, enthusiastic, motivated, a lot of positive things that will bring in excitement to what you do in terms of your ministry. So let's explore two key elements of your personal style that you took that inventory on initially. First, how you are energized, and then we'll look at how you are organized. Now, if you're not quite sure what your scores were, look back in your book on page 111 and kind of review that as we go on from here. Now, first area looked at how you are energized. That's on page 115. And this scale reflects how you receive and focus your emotional energy, and ways in which you become energized as you interact with either people or tasks. Now, the question is, are you more task-oriented or people-oriented? And that's what you found out on your score. So you may be task-oriented. And if you are task-oriented, what that means is that you are energized by doing things, you are energized by accomplishing tasks, and you are energized by working with people who share your commitment to the task. So you like to get things done, and you want to get on with the job, and you want to be with people who want to get on with the job and complete the job as well too. If you are in a position with a lot of relational activities, you can feel awkward or frustrated. You want to get down to business. You don't particularly like to go into those kind of touchy-feely types of activities, and you don't like to have a lot of relational exercises because you just want to get on with the task and get it done. Well, if you scored more in the people-oriented direction, then you're going to be energized in a different way. You're going to be energized by interpersonal relationships with other people. You're going to love to have people interactions and constantly enjoy meeting and interacting with people. And you're going to enjoy working with people in a team setting. So if you're people-oriented, You're going to feel awkward or frustrated if your main focus is on just tasks and if you are isolated from being around other people. Now, it's important to note that both task-oriented and people-oriented people value developing relationships and meeting goals. So it's not to say that a person who is task-oriented is not concerned with people, because most are, of course. And it's not to say that people-oriented people aren't good at completing tasks, because they can be as well too. But each of the two different types of people have a primary and a secondary means of achieving the task. You want to start where you are and then move toward what needs to be done, either to complete the task if you're people-oriented, or to make sure that you relate well to people and include people in what you're doing if you're a task-oriented person. Now turn over to page 116 and we'll look at this other grid, and that question here is, how are you organized? Now this scale reflects how you prefer to organize your world. Are you more of an unstructured person, or are you more of a structured person? Now if you're an unstructured person, you like to put everything in piles. You are less concerned about being precise. You prefer lots of options and flexibility. You like to keep open-ended and open-minded about things. You prefer a lot of activities, a lot of variety. You're comfortable in undefined situations, and you like spontaneous relationships. So you just kind of like to sometimes go with the flow, but do so around with people. Now, if you're a structured person, you like to put everything in files, not piles, but files. You like to plan and bring order to your life. You like to enjoy stable and consistent relationships where you can depend on situations and on people that you know. You make decisions and you seek closures. You want to be able to finish something and then move on to something else. Usually structured people are more detailed and they like things clearly defined. Now, both again value being organized, but each has a different approach. Some of you like files, while others of you like piles, and your piles are organized at least the way you like them to be there. But here's one caution to be aware of. When we talk about personal styles and see how different they are, there can be a tendency by some to use their style to justify their actions. And what I mean by that is that you can say, well, I'm not really an organized person, so I'm always late to meetings. Well, that may explain a little bit of why you're late to meetings, but you can't use that to justify why you are. So you can't simply reflect your personality and make every excuse for that when you're supposed to do something. You're supposed to meet deadlines. You're supposed to meet deadlines. It doesn't give you an excuse if you're highly task-oriented to not really care about people and involve, to some degree at least, your relationships with people as you work together on a task. Now, let's continue as we look at your personal style to realize that though God made us in a particular way, that we need to sometimes relate in a different way, and that's the grace and the help that God will give to us. So if you are a task-oriented person, you pray that God will give you grace and the warmth of character to reach out to include more people. Or if you are a highly people-oriented person, maybe you need to pray for self-discipline and things that the Holy Spirit can give you to help complete a task or to do things that need to be done in a timely way. So God can certainly help us to compensate for being able to do our ministry if it's not necessarily in a dominant area of our strength. Now let's put the two scales together that we have been talking about, and you'll see that you now fall, as you probably already saw it when you completed this, the task in the last session in one of 4 quadrants. So you may have found yourself in the quadrant of task and unstructured. So let's talk about that and each of the other ones here. So if you're task and unstructured, you tend to like general guidelines. You like to be versatile, you like to get tangible results, and you like to help wherever needed. So when you think about kind of those strengths there and look at some possibilities for ministry, some of the types of ministries that might reflect a task unstructured person would be room setup and breakdown, special events organizers that come along once in a while. You like to organize it, it gets done, you know, and then you can move on to something else. Or perhaps building projects team would be something. So sometimes, you know, something to be able to get done and to be able to move on from that point. Now, another quadrant there is task and structured. So if you're in that quadrant, you tend to get the job done. You like to focus on the results of what you're doing. You like to follow an agenda, and you appreciate clear direction as to what you're supposed to do and then be able to do it. Now, some serving opportunities that reflect that particular personal style would be working on the sound and lighting team. So you have a task, it's very structured, so that fits you. Could be offering taker or an offering counter, or it could be a drama set builder. So those are some things that might reflect that particular personality. Now another quadrant would be people and unstructured. So you are people-oriented, but you don't necessarily like a whole lot of structure to life. So in this case, you tend to be very conversational. So you like people, you like to talk with people. You tend to be very flexible. So if there's changes that need to be made, you're fine with that. You relate well with others, being people-oriented, and you like spontaneous situations. So if something comes up, an emergency or something, that's fine with you. You can respond well in that. Some of the different opportunities for ministry in that, with that particular personality, could be a crisis hotline counselor, could be somebody that's part of the greeter team, or the information center. So you're dealing with people with a variety of tasks and new things that come up there. Finally, you may be in the last quadrant, and that is the people-structured quadrant. So you like people, but you also like structure along with your relationships there in life and with people. So in this case, if you are that kind of personality, you project warmth, being people-oriented. You like defined relationships. You relate well with others, and you enjoy familiar surroundings. So if that describes your personality, some ministry opportunities could be a small group leader, or could be part of the membership team where you are interacting with people and helping them to find a kind of a fit in the church. And for assimilation strategies, again, reaching out to people, helping them to fit in some way to kind of provide perhaps structure or connection in their life as well too. All right, so that hopefully that gives you a little bit of a sense of which of the quadrants then you identified with and what that means to identify with a particular personal style. Now, as you look for serving opportunities that are consistent with your personal style, you'll also want to consider another thing called the comfort zone. So look on page 118 here. And you'll see the grid there, but you'll also see 4 different people that have scored in the task and unstructured quadrant of this grid. And by where they are, you can see a comfort zone that reflects a little bit of the intensity of your particular style. For example, if you look there at the upper left quadrant, the task unstructured, you'll see these 4 people that scored in that task unstructured quadrant, except they're kind of at different places there in the quadrant. You see Mike and Carrie and Todd and Jenna, and based on the fact that they're in the task unstructured quadrant, they would each fit into any kind of a ministry situation that would reflect a task unstructured person. However, you also see that around each dot there is a bigger circle that is grayed in, and that reflects their comfort zone. In other words, that they have a comfort ability to be able to be a little bit beyond what that exact little dot is that reflects where they scored on their particular personal style. And what that means is that your comfort zone is a little bit broader than the exact dot of where you scored. We're all like rubber bands. We can stretch in any number of directions, and certainly with God's help, we can expand our ability to relate to people. We can expand our ability to be flexible if need be, if we're more structured, or we can be more structured if we're inflexible. And so in different ways, we can kind of expand a little bit more of how we relate to tasks and people. However, if we stay too far out in our comfort zone, like a rubber band, after a while it's going to get stretched out and eventually it may break. So you want to be careful with that. Now notice how Todd, Carrie, and Jenna are close to a borderline here. And so they're in the task unstructured quadrant, but each of them, with their comfort zone, kind of moves them over into another quadrant. So they really could do other types of ministries that fall into one of these other quadrants. And then if you look at Jenna there, she is kind of right almost at the very center and has a comfort zone that really touches all four of the different quadrants. And then you look at poor Mike, he's up in the corner and he just needs to stay in his corner the whole time. So he would, score high and not have as much flexibility, to take on a ministry in one of these other quadrants as Carrie or Todd or Jenna would be. All right, so it's important to note that in many ministry positions, your personal style, though, may not be the most critical factor determining your best fit. So as we've been talking and using alongside this network course here, the SHAPE acronym, your personality is only just one of 5 different factors that will help guide you in terms of the right ministry to have. Spiritual gifts, as we've already seen, are a major factor, but then so is your personality, and so are the other aspects of what we're going to be looking at here. Now, besides this, let me set this personal profile aside for a moment. And I gave you a profile last week to do in addition to the network profile, and that was a Myers-Briggs personality inventory. So it was this pink sheet that you saw, and you went through that and scored yourself, and were able to then determine your personality using the Myers-Briggs inventory. Now, as you saw, there were 4 pairs of letters, and so on the back page of this personality inventory, after you scored each of the 4 pages in those pairs, you came up with 4 dominant letters, such as ESTJ, or INFP, or ENTP. So you had, one profile that reflected your Myers-Briggs typing inventory. Now, what do those particular letters mean? Well, in our packet that you got at the beginning of this course, there's this other explanation sheet called the Personality Temperaments, How Porcupines Can Learn to Dance Together. Now, I'm not going to take the time to go over this because you can read it, and it explains more of what each of those letters indicate, and in a number of different ways gives you some descriptions and guidelines and communication styles and so forth. So you can read through that And what you want to do as you read through that is to get a sense of kind of understanding, yes, that's who I am. I gather information this way. I like my world ordered this way, and so forth. And at the back of this handout, there's some good information of other resources to get, and there's a number of good books out on Myers-Briggs inventories, because it's been out for a number of years and is one of the most used inventories in the whole world. In addition, what you want to do is to call me or the Class 301 leader, because we have another sheet that will give you a little bit more information on your particular type. For example, I'm an ISTJ, and on this sheet that we have that would reflect your particular typing, whatever it might be, this one talks about the contribution to the spiritual community, leadership style, preferred environment for service, some common confessions, and possible spiritual helps. So you'll want to let us know what your personality style is, so we can get you one of these sheets that reflects your style. Now, after you do all that as well, what you want to do is to transfer all of your information to your personal shape profile form. So hopefully after you looked at your spiritual gifts, you put the information from your spiritual gifts on page 1 of this sheet. And now on the inside, on page 3, transfer your network profile personality on the bottom half of this page, and then your Myers-Briggs profile and the numbers at the top of the page. So that way you'll continue to fill out this form with the information that you're gaining on yourself, that when you start to put all the information together, you'll be able to see all of the different pieces as you think about what ministry to undertake. Now, we've covered personal style and talked about that, but let's do one other thing here to kind of to wrap up this part of it, so you can see a little bit of how your personality comes into play in terms of your character, your ministry, your interaction with the world as well too. So if you look over on page 119, I want you to do a couple things here. First of all, I want you to write your name on line A. All right, so just write your name on line A. Okay, now, having done that, I want you to write your name on line B, except I want you to use your opposite hand. All right, so write your name on line B with your opposite hand. Now, having done that, what happened? How did it feel? Well, if you're like most of us, you were able to write your name, but it felt awkward, didn't it? You probably had to think about how to write your name or to print your name. It wasn't very comfortable. It certainly took more time, and most likely, you know, it probably wasn't as neat as when you write it with your normal hand. Some of you, it might have been a whole lot neater compared to your normal signature. But what that helps us to realize is that we all have a preference for how we interact with the world, what we prefer to do in terms of being with people or focusing on tasks. It's not that we can't be different, but we have a preference. And that again reveals the fact that your personality reflects your preference. So when you are thinking about a ministry, you want to find a ministry that's going to reflect your preference. Now, we want to move on to another major section here, and that's the ministry passion. And in our SHAPE acronym, that's the H of SHAPE, stands for heart. Let me ask you a question. What do you think of, or who do you think of when you hear the name James Dobson? Well, if you're older, you think probably family, because that's been a passion of his. What do you think of when you hear the name Billy Graham? Well, you think evangelizing, don't you? Reaching a lost world. What do you think of when you hear the name Mother Teresa? Compassion, mercy, helping the destitute. Now, when you think of all three of those individuals, what usually comes to mind is what they were passionate about, how they got involved, and what they dedicated their life to, and really what really energized them and motivated them more so than anything else. That's really what passion is all about. If you look over on page 120, we recognize that God cares for every need. You know, that's the wonderful God that we have. Every single need that anyone has all over the world, God cares for that need. However, we don't care for every need. It would be impossible. And so for all of the multitudes of needs all over the world, we have a God who cares for those needs. However, because all of us can only handle one or two really passionate needs, to get excited about, what God has done is to put His passion and His heart into the hearts of all of us, so that all of us together reflect God's complete heart and His concern for all people. The part of His heart that He has for children, He's put in one person's heart. The part of His heart that He has for the lost, He's put that in somebody else's heart. The part of His heart that He has for the hungry, He's put in someone else's heart. And so these concerns and cares that God has, the passions that God has, He's distributed them in the hearts of all of us as His children. That's why you care about some things more than somebody else. You get excited about some things where other people could be yawning, as you are talking away about, something that relates to what you're passionate about. That's why, different people care about different things. It's all by God's design. And as God has shaped us, that's what the heart and our passion is all about. So when we talk about ministry passion here, as you notice in the box there on page 120, ministry passion is a heartfelt desire that compels us to make a difference for the kingdom of God. It's a heartfelt desire. It comes right from the very center of us, and it compels us. We just want to get involved in something that relates to that passion. We just have to get involved, and so it compels us and draws us into that kind of a ministry and that kind of a setting. One passion may right a wrong. It may meet a need that's out there in the world. It may solve a problem. It may serve a cause. It may change a life. It goes in many, many different directions to get involved and to do something particularly about that ministry passion. So, 3 truths about ministry passion that are important here, and that's on page 121. First of all, ministry passion is God-given. So when you get excited about something, God puts His heart in your heart, and it's God-given. Then second, there's no right or wrong ministry passion. Ministry passions are just different. So that's why, when you talk to different people will have ministry passions about different things. And that's fine. That's how God made them and what God has put into their heart versus someone else. And then thirdly, ministry passion answers the where question. Where do I serve? Notice that God has a passion for us. John 3:16 says, for God so loved the world that He gave His one and only Son. That was a passion that God had to help us in the condition that we found ourselves after sin entered the world. God also has a purpose for the passion that He puts into our hearts. Over in Philippians 2, verse 13, it says, for it is God who works in you to will and to act according to His good purpose. So God is acting and willing, putting into our lives those things that He wants us to be passionate about. On page 122, we find in the Psalms, Psalm 37, verses 3 and 4, these words, trust in the Lord and do good, Dwell in the land and enjoy safe pasture. Delight yourself in the Lord, and He will give you the desires of your heart. Again, when you especially are walking with the Lord, the desires you have are the desires that God puts into your heart. And that reflects, again, the passion and the heart that God has given to you. Jesus himself promised in John 15, if you remain in me and my words remain in you, ask whatever you wish and it will be given to you. So as we stay close to Jesus and keep close with Him and His words abide in our heart, that's going to reflect, again, the passion that we have, that we can walk with Him and ask Him, for whatever we wish that is on our heart, and He will respond to that because Jesus is the one that put those desires in our heart to begin with. And then the Apostle Paul also had a God-given ministry passion. He wanted to preach to the Gentiles, and so that was what drove him, to have his ministry all over Asia Minor and to try and reach people and reach Gentiles for Christ. So passion may stir in you a deep sadness or a great enthusiasm. There's a variety of expressions and feelings that come, when you begin to get excited about your passion. It may burst out of you with great energy, or it just may be something that kind of steadily trickles into your heart and keeps you being prompted about a particular area of ministry and just won't let go of you. Now, sometimes people describe their ministry passion, not so much to say, my ministry passion is, but they'll use different words, and you can pick up what a person's ministry passion is a lot of times by certain types of words that people are using. For example, someone gets angry about something consistently, kind of in a righteous way. So someone would talk about being angry about something, or they have an assignment and they keep going back and they have this assignment that they've got to take place and accomplish. Or they have a burden about something. They have a deep burden and that burden continues. Or they have a sense of calling or a compassion or a destiny. And there on page 123, you can look at all the different words there that often reflect what this passion and this heart is all about that God has given to us. So sometimes when you listen to other people, you can see these words used over and over again that really does reflect what that person's heart and passion is all about. Now remember, ministry passions are not spiritual gifts, so we're keeping those separate, of course. Spiritual gifts are functions or tasks that you perform. They're what you do, in ministry passions or feelings or desires, our heart. That's what motivates you to serve in a particular ministry. Now, as we talk about finding our ministry passion, we're going to do two assignments. One is part of the network guide here, and then I'm going to go refer to one that I've given you in this packet of material when you first took this class here. I'll talk about that in a few minutes here. But let's look first at the network and talk about the ministry passion assessment here. So we're over on page 124 here. Purpose of this assessment is to assist you in the identification and articulation of your God-given ministry passion. And the results will release greater motivation and enthusiasm in your life and ministry. All right, so this is what you want to do. So if you just look down at page 124 here and follow along as I read here. You may not be able to answer all the questions, and that's okay. The assignment is designed to explore a variety of ways that God speaks to us about our ministry passion. He has probably spoken to you in some of these ways, but not all of them. So some of the exercises that you do, you may not necessarily understand them all or complete them all, but that's why there's several that you'll be doing, not just one. Then secondly, prayerfully consider your responses to each question. So the passion that you have is a passion that God gave you. So take some time to pray. Take some time to ask God to reveal what the answers are as you reflect and think on these different questions. Third, this is an individual exercise, so you can ask other people about it, perhaps, but really you know yourself most and best. So this is something you should do on your own. Then fourth, there's no right or wrong answers, of course. You know, say what's on your heart. This is what's on your heart. It's what's going on the inside of you. It's what God is doing in you. So there's no right or wrong answers at all here. Then 5, at this point, do not consider whether you could do it or how you could do it. All you need to do right now is to name it. One of the problems is a lot of times we think about something that gets us excited and then we automatically start thinking of obstacles. We think about why we can't do it. And if God has given us a burden, a lot of times what God is wanting us to do is to step out in faith, to trust Him to provide whatever we need to be able to do what He has put on our heart to do. So don't even look at obstacles or challenges or anything else at this point. Just sense what God has put in your heart. And then 6 says, assume there are no obstacles to hinder you from fulfilling your heart's desire. So assume everything is taken care of, family, money, career, time. Just again, don't let anything hinder you and seek to stop you at this point. All right, now the exercise is in your book starting on page 125. So if you turn over to there, you can see that the first thing you'll be doing is a ministry passion assessment. So reflect about that. Take some time to think about that on page 126. It begins to help you think of experiences that you've had in your life. And this is going to be something that we'll be doing in the next exercise as well too. So it explains how to do that, why the experience is meaningful, and to try and draw out perhaps a theme that you might identify along with that. And then page 127 talks about our ministry passion. Sometimes they center on a particular group of people. So you may have a burden for a particular group of people. You may have a burden for children. You may have a burden for elderly adults. You may have a burden for someone in the gay community. Whatever that might be a burden on your heart there. Or have a particular social issue that you get excited about or enthused or motivated or angry about and want to see God do something. So you can look at that. Then over on page 128, it gives you a chart of different categories of ministry, and as you read through to figure out a particular category of ministry that might reflect your passion as well too. And then over on page 129, hopefully you'll be able to make some kind of assessment of what your ministry passion is. All right, so stop the DVD or the tape at this point and work on that, and then when you're done, turn the tape back on. All right, well, hopefully after that exercise, you were able to identify your ministry passion or begin to get a sense of direction of what that ministry passion or your heart is all about. Now, what I want you to do is to take out a couple of other sheets in your packet, because this next assignment reflects that. And this one reflects the heart. So the blue sheets that you have that are called Discovering My Heartbeat, so take those out. And also there's a green sheet that you have that is called Heartbeat and Abilities Summary Chart. So you want to take that out as well too. All right, as you look at the Discovering My Heartbeat sheet here, or little article, first part summarizes what your heart is. So it's a little bit exactly like we talked about in terms of your ministry passion. So just another way of identifying ministry passion and making it link to what your heart is there. So read the first page there, and then on the second page it says taking a spiritual EKG. All right, so what this is an exercise. It's adapted from a very helpful book called What Color is Your Parachute? If you've are in the process of trying to figure out what job to take, this exercise comes out of that book, and it works in a very similar way to identify some of your gifts and abilities and passions. So that's applied in a vocational way, but I've adapted it to apply in a spiritual ministry way here. All right, so look at that and mention step 1. Similar to what you did in the ministry profile or the network profile exercise, was you want to list and describe your major accomplishments, high points, or repeated activities since childhood. So in the back of this packet, pages 5 and 6, there's different eras of your life that what you're trying to do is to look back and identify those things that you were good at, those things that you achieved, those things that you enjoyed doing, whether you did them well or not, but just to identify some things that stand out in your memory. So you go through that up to whatever age you are to complete that, and write in as descriptive a way as possible as you think back on some of those memories that come to your mind, some of the specific things that you did that you know, reflect in a very specific way, something you enjoyed, something you achieved, something you accomplished, something like that there. And so there's some examples here on the pages 2 and 3 about that. All right, so once you've done that, and this may take a little bit of time, so don't try and rush through that. So you know, think through, and you know, you may be like I do. I can go back to my list of things that I've written, and I can fill in some other exercises or other memories of things that I've remembered in the past. So what you'll do is kind of build a bigger core of those things that, as you look back, will begin to identify some key threads in your life. Then step 2 here on page 3, after you have done that, then you want to begin to identify what skills and abilities those different memories reflected in you. And so that's where the heartbeat and abilities summary chart comes into play. First page is just a summary, so turn over to page 2, and pages 2, 3, and 4 break down 3 major categories of life. On page 2, it has to do with people. On page 3, it has to do with information, data, and ideas. And on page 4, it has to do with things. So your information sheet here talks about how to proceed with taking your memories, and then for the different aspects of your memories that relate to skills and abilities, you're to find in this summary sheet where those abilities are, and then color in a box that falls under each of those bubbles there, reflecting a particular ability or skill. So again, it will help you to do that. What you'll end up doing is going back and forth, looking at some of your memories, looking through this summary sheet, finding a particular bubble that represents a skill or an ability, and underneath that you'll darken in, say, number 1 when that first is reflected. After a couple of other memories that might be reflecting that same particular skill, you'll fill in, you know, number 2, number 3, number 4. As often as a particular skill or an ability comes up in one of your memories, then fill in one of the numbers under that skill. And what's going to happen is that some of these skills and abilities, you're going to, you know, have quite a number of boxes darkened under that ability, and that will begin to give you a very clear sense of what your skills and abilities are. Now, when you've done that with all of the different memories that you have, then what you want to do at the bottom of these pages is tally up the number of boxes that you've scored. So for each of the different skills and abilities, just tally up in each column how many boxes you darkened under each of those columns there. For example, on page 2, in working with people, let's say that under personal communication in column 1, maybe you had boxes 1 and 2 darkened in that. And maybe under counseling, you actually had 3 boxes darkened under there. Maybe under teaching, you had 2. So what you would do is to total up the number. There you would have 2 from personal communication, 3 from counseling, that's 5. 2 from teaching is 7, so write a 7 at the very bottom of that particular column there. So do that with all of them. And then what you want to do is to take all the information there and put it on the front there. So first at the bottom half of page 1, my abilities, take the abilities there, the bubbles there, and rank from highest number of boxes that you indicated down. And so just write perhaps the first 7, 8, or 9 different skills and abilities in there. Now what you want to do is at the bottom, when you've totaled each of the columns, take the column, and as you go up the sheet into the grade area, you will see that the grade area reflects your heartbeat. Okay, heartbeat is different from skill and abilities, but it relates to them. So under the column that has the most boxes scored, that would be your number 1 heartbeat. And so write that down on the front. So let's say maybe over under information, data, and ideas, your number 1 column there is reflected in the heartbeat, gathering or creating it. Maybe you had 15 boxes there, and that was your highest total. Okay, so your heartbeat would be gathering or creating information, data, and ideas. Okay, so go through that and put the top 4 or 5 here that you have that reflect your heartbeat. Okay, it may be a little bit difficult with this exercise to think through that and to put all the pieces together, but this is an incredible exercise that you'll find really does reflect what you're passionate about and helps to take a lot of the skills and the abilities that God has given to you and direct those into a particular passion. And when you're done with all of that, then take that information and again put it into your personal shape profile there, which for that particular part would be at the bottom of page 1, which reflects your heartbeat, onto page 2 there. And so copy that information over to there. Okay, so do that, and then after you're done, we'll finish up this last little segment here of session 5. Okay, this last session here on session 5 is to watch this DVD. And in this DVD, you'll see how this one lady, Lauren, there was wanting to find a ministry. And so she was kind of by trial and error looking to try something and then kind of led in a different direction here. So watch the DVD, and then when you're done, and as you watch the DVD, notice on page 130 here, keep these different questions in mind as you watch the DVD. How did Lauren first describe her passion after her first ministry experience? What did she realize? How did it make her feel? And so forth. So keep those in mind, and then watch this DVD, and then when you're done, come back and we'll finish up.
It's scary. Thank you.
Hi, Jenny. Excuse me, are you here as a leader?
Yes, I think so. I'm Lauren Fisher.
Lauren, yes. Nice to meet you. I'm Robert, the Small Groups Ministries Administrator.
Hi.
So, I understand this is your maiden voyage as a small group leader.
Yes.
Well, we thought we'd put you as leader of a group of those not yet connected to a small group.
Oh, okay.
And then later on, of course, you'll have your own group.
So, what do I do this weekend?
It's not really involved. After the plenary sessions, we'll break into small groups and you'll facilitate those discussions.
Okay. Do you have a guide of some sort?
I wish I could say yes, but the box of leader guides didn't make it.
Oh.
I'm sorry.
So, do I just make questions up?
Well, the speakers are very good, and I think their messages will create a lot of good discussion.
And there'll just be a small group of women?
Well, about 15 or 20.
All at one time?
I hope that's not going to be a problem.
No. No, that's fine.
Well, we're going to gather as leaders right over here in just a minute and pray before we kick off our weekend together. Okay?
Okay. Okay.
Hi, Lauren. How's it going?
Hi, Elena. Thanks for meeting with me.
No problem. What's up?
I just need to talk with you. I think there's something wrong with Network, or there's something wrong with me. I don't know. I'm very confused.
Why? What happened?
When I completed Network, I thought I'd be really good ministering in small groups. Well, after the retreat, I realized I'm not. In fact, I don't even know if I like people.
Oh, Lauren.
I had 24 in my small group. I didn't have anything to follow, no guide, no questions. And they just sat there staring at me, looking for me to lead them.
Okay, hold on.
You're the leader of small group ministries. You've got to get me out of this.
Lauren, relax. This is okay. Now let's back up. When we talked a few months back, we agreed that small groups was a place that looked like a good fit.
24 is not a small group, it's a mob.
You're right. 24 is a large group. But remember, the course is intended to give you a general direction as to where to begin serving. It's only a starting point.
Well, I've come to a complete stop. Plus, there was nothing for me to hold on to or read.
You were left without anyone or anything to help you.
Yes, it was awful.
Okay. Do you think you would have been okay if there had been some discussion questions to guide you?
I do like paper and ideas.
Okay, that's good. Preparation is important to you.
Yes, otherwise my mind tends to go blank.
Okay, let's rethink this, because again, Lauren, this is a process of finding where your passion lies. We think it may be somewhere in the ministry of small groups. So what if you tried this again and met with a truly small group?
Define small.
Maybe 5 or 6 women? What do you think?
That would probably be okay.
A small group of 6 women with a guide to assist you in leading the discussion.
That sounds better.
Good. Now, you've been attending the Saturday morning Bible studies at church. Why don't you try your hand at leading one? It's a safe group, you know all the women, and you might even tell them you're kind of testing the waters a bit. What do you think?
Well, I suppose I could give it a try.
Good. Then give it some time, because you've never done anything like this before. And trust God to guide you.
Okay. I think I can do that, because I do have a heart for women.
I know you do.
Just not a gaggle of them.
Robert said you did wonderfully well.
This is gonna be good. This is gonna be a good year. Yeah. New ministry year.
Right.
We got a great study that we're gonna do. It's gonna be
I'm
good.
looking forward to it.
So, how's things going with your son?
I don't know. I just can't seem to reach him.
Any chance to talk with him at all?
When I can catch him going from the car to his room. There are times when my heart just breaks and I just don't know what to do about it.
I've been there. It's so hard.
Yeah.
What about Mark? Is he any help?
Still working late. I can't get his help with this at all.
Did you call that support group?
I called. I don't know. I guess I'm still in denial.
It takes courage to call.
You guys look like you're in a deep discussion.
As always.
Hey, what are you guys up to?
We're just comparing notes on our small groups.
How's it going?
Here, sit down.
You sure it's okay?
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks.
So, how are your groups going?
Well, my group started out with about 10 guys, but now we're down to 6, so.
And I've got 3 couples, and so far they're going pretty strong.
It's just hard to get guys to commit.
How about you, Lauren? You've been at this for what, several months now?
7 months, 3 weeks, and 2 hours, but who's counting?
Wow.
Is that a good thing or a bad thing, keeping track like that?
I don't know. I'm still struggling to make this fit. I have a hard time getting geared up to lead these women.
Well, do you think it's the women? Well, no offense, Christine.
No, oh no, I love these women. They're so precious to me.
So where's the hang-up?
The whole group thing, I guess. Plus, I don't know if I'm doing any good.
Are you kidding? I love our times together.
What times?
These times, when you call me up and say, let's go grab some coffee and talk, I go home and I'm encouraged and I'm ready to face my crazy family again.
Yeah, I love getting together with these women.
One-on-one?
That's my favorite part. I guess I do the Bible study in order to have an excuse to get together with them separately.
You meet individually with each of the women in your group.
Yeah, I don't do that.
Me neither.
I mean, I wouldn't even know what to say.
Oh my gosh, I find myself thinking of these women and praying for them all the time.
Well, maybe that's your thing.
What?
Well, meeting one-on-one, doing the mentoring thing.
Yeah, Lauren, you are definitely more relaxed and engaged when we're talking together versus in the group.
Huh, do you think I can do the mentoring thing without having to do the Bible study?
I don't see why not.
Is there such a ministry?
If not, there's about to be, and I'm signing up with you first.
Okay. I like this. I like this idea a lot.
Well, now that you have your life figured out, can you do something about him?
I don't like to work with hopeless cases.
So what you're saying?
Okay, now you saw Lauren, you saw someone who really wasn't quite sure where the right place was for ministry, and so you saw her begin to go into that process of trying to find out what works well for her. So let's go through these questions. How did Lauren first describe her passion? Well, her passion was for a small group of women, wasn't it? So that was what her initial sense was that she wanted to be a part of. And then question 2, after her first ministry experience, what did she realize and how did it make her feel? Well, it wasn't very comfortable, was it, for her? Didn't seem to be fulfilling, didn't seem to be kind of what she really was looking for, and just kind of lacked confidence, didn't she, when she came out of that episode? So she was uncomfortable leading so many women without more structure there. So question 3, while talking with the director of small groups, what did Lauren come to better understand about her ministry passion? Well, she certainly could have made adjustments, couldn't she? She could have maybe taken a class on how to be a better leader, how to ask questions, how to develop a study, and so forth. So she could have done that. But her challenge was more to clarify, what part of the experience she was uncomfortable with, what part that she liked, and then kind of identify that. She certainly didn't want to quit, so obviously that's never the answer. The answer is to find out, where do we move to? What do we do? What do we adjust to? She was also overwhelmed with numbers, wasn't she, and wanted to meet with a smaller group of people, not just a bigger group, but even a smaller group. But she really had a heart for women, so it kind of confirmed that part, that she liked being with women, liked interacting with them, but she really did want to be in a small group, not a bigger group of women. All right, so question 4, what additional insights came to Lauren and some months later, which helped her better understand her ministry passion? And that was the conversation in the coffee shop, remember, with a couple of her small group friends there. Well, she found the specific one-on-one interactions most meaningful, didn't she? And she found it hard to get geared up for a whole group, but when it was a matter of meeting with one person, boy, she got excited about that, didn't she? Her interest and energy just greatly increased when she thought about mentoring. And so Lauren's ministry passion was working with women, but it was working with women more on a one-to-one or mentoring basis. So she started kind of with one general sense and had to kind of scale that down and refocus it in a way to keep working with women, but to do so in a little bit different context. And that's what can often happen. So, if you're fairly new to ministry, fairly new to the concept of looking at your shape, you may have that kind of an experience where out of this class you'll start with something. You'll try it for a while, it may fit, it may not fit, and you'll make some adjustments, and then you'll try something else, and maybe that will be better, but maybe there'll be some more adjustments that you'll have to make. Or you may just hit something eventually and say, hey, this is exactly what I was shaped for. And so you'll find your place of ministry that way. Now let's summarize here as we close this session. Here's some truths that we've looked at. One, your personal style indicates the way you prefer to relate to people in the world around you. All right, your personal style, your personality is important, and you want to try and, as much as possible, be in a ministry, be in a setting with people, with tasks that reflect your personality. Second, personal style helps us to understand our comfort zone and explain our behavior, but does not excuse it. All right, so we recognize that even though we each have a personality, a lot of times we can minister and engage with people and opportunities in a little bit broader way. So we have a comfort zone that for some people may be very tight, for other people it may be quite wider so that they have a lot more adaptability. Ministry passion, thirdly, is a heartfelt desire that compels us to make a difference for the kingdom of God. So when we now talk about passion, or we talk about the heart of our SHAPE acronym here, it's something that is deep within us. It keeps reappearing, and when we see it or hear about it, it just does something within us to help us to want to be a part of that. And it helps us to know where we could best serve. So again, it takes our spiritual gifts, it takes abilities, it kind of combines that with the motivation of our heart and puts that all together to give us the opportunity of knowing how to minister. All right, so that covers up the things so far, and so we're going to look at the promise of ministry in our next session here. So that'll be session 6, and then again we'll be wrapping up all these things. And just as a reminder, make sure that if you haven't put all the information that you've been gathering about yourself into your SHAPE profile, that you need to do that, because when you meet with one of the ministry leaders or myself, you will want to have all that information there, and you'll have kind of your whole life there, being able to help you know what to do. All right, so let me pray for you. Thank you, Father, for this session. Thank you for the fact that you truly have given us a personality that reflects how you've made us. And then, Lord, in a not only a unique way about our personality, but also in a unique way about our heart desire, our ministry passion. You've given us that as well, too. And so I pray that as we understand what those different aspects are of the way that you've created us, that you'll make it very clear and continue to make it clear in terms of the next step in the ministry for each person. I pray in Christ's name.